the importance of something temporary in life, as to how something temporary can shape us, how something temporary can define us. And I think there is no better way to do this than by telling you that life itself is a very temporary affair. In this temporary state of life, we feel so much, we experience so much, we grow so much, we try and live so much. And I think that itself defines the fact that something which is temporary can be really important if only we focus on it. Ladies and gentlemen, my family has been soldiering for many, many years. And keeping that in mind, I would like to tell you about an incident which took place over a short period of time, but how it impacted and changed my brother's life. So my brother and his friend, they considered themselves to be really intellectual boys, the studious, the brainy ones. So they decided that if they got into an institute like BITS or IIT, then the world would be their oyster. So with that confidence, these two boys, they went and they enrolled themselves in one of the coaching classes. What followed was that they realized that every time the teacher asked the student a question, and when the teacher asked the student a question and the student was not able to answer it, the teacher would walk up to the student and give a tight slap to that student. So this made these two boys sit on pins and needles throughout the week. And the icing on the cake was when a question was asked to a girl, and unfortunately, she too was not able to answer. And to keep the tradition alive, the same happened with her. She too got a smack. And that's when these two boys looked at each other and they realized as to how the next year would be. Their life for the next 1 year flashed in front of their eyes, and they realized that the kind of students they actually were, they would be getting this on a daily basis. So the two of them left the place, and without telling the family members, they got themselves enrolled in the NDA coaching instead. They thought that they would follow in the family footstep, and I don't know why. They thought joining the army and facing a war and facing bullets was a much safer option than getting a few smacks. But anyway, that worked for them. And that is how an incident which happened with one of the girls changed their life. What I'm trying to say is that we often think that for something to be impactful, for something to be big, it has to be associated with a grand event or an event which goes on for a long duration of time. But that's really not the case. Sometimes life hits us when we least expect it. You know what? It could be a situation that you find yourself in. It could be a chance meeting with someone. Or it could be something as simple as sitting on the beach, watching the sunset, and getting the most inspirational thought of your life. The only thing that we need to focus on is that we are always aware and alert of what's going on. I myself have had many such temporary moments which have shaped my career, which have shaped me as a person, and which later on has led to many of my social causes. The first moment that I would like to talk about is about an incident which took place when I was in class 12th. And being from the army, we had army camps which were organized for the children. So every year there was an adventure camp which the kids would go to. So that year, I decided to go and attend one such camp. We went to Darjeeling, and the camp went off well. We had a good time. When it was time to come back, a few soldiers and an army officer came to see us off. And when we boarded the train, we realized that the seats which were reserved for the children, those seats were already occupied by others. So those people were asked nicely to vacate. They didn't listen to it. They didn't want to. They wanted us to accommodate them. That didn't go down very well with us, and eventually those guys had to leave. We made them leave. And keeping the safety of the children in mind and the fact that only one soldier was going to accompany us all the way back, it was something that needed to be done. So that happened, the night went by, and we forgot about the incident. But the next day, when we reached the Barakpur station, we realized that the people who had been asked to leave, they had not forgotten about the incident. And they wanted to get back. And one by one, they started entering the bogie and they sprawled themselves on our seats. Now, when this happened, this particular soldier who was traveling with us, he went to them and he said, "You know what? These seats are reserved. They've been paid for. You can't be here. You need to leave." And that is all that those guys were waiting for. That small little spark to light the fire. What followed was a verbal spat and a physical fight. So when the physical fight started, this guy was alone. He was a lone soldier, and there were 10 of these odd people over there. He was outnumbered. So when we saw him outnumbered, there were boys with us who were traveling. So the boys jumped in, and they said, "All right, you know what? Bring it on. We're going to fight." What we didn't realize is that they utilized the entire night to build up this scenario with the others as well. And within no time, there were 20 to 30 odd people inside the bogie, beating the life out of us. And when we girls saw this, we said, "All right, nothing doing. This can't go on." So we decided to get in as well. And we had punches coming from all sides. We were being beaten up with sticks and umbrellas. There was this one friend of mine who was at the door, and he was being pulled out of the train by his hand, and we were holding on to his legs and pulling him back in, because on that platform, when we looked out, there was nothing less than 100 odd people. It was a proper mob that we were facing then. Till date, when I think of it, I get goosebumps as to how we survived it. Facing a mob, what a mob lynching is. I've been there, I've experienced it, and it wasn't something, it's never good. So anyways, we kept on pulling the chain of the train so that the train wouldn't move. We did not want to have this fight in a moving train. And to cut the long story short, the security forces came. We were safe. We were put in the army trucks and the buses, and that's how we proceeded back home from Barakpur. When we sat in that bus, we were shell-shocked. We had no idea what we had survived. And I'm sure half the people in the mob didn't know why they were fighting, but they just wanted to. That's the mentality and the flow that people go with. So when the shock wore off and we came back to normal, the shock was replaced by excitement, the excitement of what we had just gone through. And we were laughing about it, and we were like, "Oh, we could have done this more. We could have hit them this way." And we went on about it. We were showing our wounds to each other and broken noses to each other as if they were medals which we had earned. But in that particular moment, there was another thing that happened. And that was the realization that when you are pushed into a corner, when your back is against the wall, then you dig your heels deep in and you fight it out. Fear is never an option. Courage is the only way forward. And this was such an impactful moment that this trait stayed with me. It became a part of my character which later on helped me build my career as well. When I got into the corporate world, I got into a team where my boss was somebody who would have team meetings on a regular basis and who thought that it was absolutely fine to have a team meeting and have the most blatant, inappropriate conversation with women. That left all of us very uncomfortable and very embarrassed as well, but nobody would speak about it. And the reason nobody spoke about it is because nobody else was talking about it. So if nobody else is talking, how do I talk about it? It's a social stigma. It went on for some time and I just couldn't take it anymore. So I got together with the team and we spoke about it and I said, what's the deal? Why are we taking this? And that's when we realized that there were a whole lot of other individual incidents which had taken place. And we understood that this person, he was in the habit of doing this. He was a habitual offender. So we had to take matters in our hand, went to HR, spoke about it, the necessary action was taken. But it also leaves you with the feeling and the understanding that harassment is something which happens on a regular basis. It happens anywhere and everywhere. Our country is huge. India, imagine the number of people in the country, right? And I would say 90% of the women, I would love to say more, but I do not have those numbers with me. So 90% of the women at some stage in life, be it as a small child, be it as a young girl in college, be it as a working woman or a lady who's not working, some time or the other in life, we experience harassment. It could be small, it could be big, but it's there, and we don't talk about it. And that's not all right. We should talk about it, and when something like this happens, the best thing to do is raise your voice rather than sitting quietly and waiting for something terrible to happen. That is when I decided that this is the course of life which I needed to follow. Raise my voice, talk about it, cry as loud as I could. And since then, I've also understood that harassment is not something which is gender biased. It's something which happens, it can happen with any and every person, any and everybody. So since then, I've been traveling the length and the breadth of the country, talking about this, bringing awareness, spreading awareness, and it's become one of the missions of my life. To conclude, I would like to quote T.S. Eliot, who said that every moment is a new beginning. It's a fresh beginning in life. So keeping that in mind and being alert of the fact that we pay more attention to our surrounding, to the moments which are surrounding us, we embrace it and we go on with life. Thank you so much. You guys have been a wonderful audience, and it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you.